Epictetus was a Stoic philosopher. He changed the world, at least for one POW. Before we talk about Epictetus, let's go back to Vietnam, September 9th, 1965. Now, you're a Navy pilot. You're flying a mission like you've done hundreds of times. Then, bam! You hear a gunshot. Then the engine hissing. You smell the smoke. And you see the plane nose turn towards the ground. You're going down. What would you do in that situation? I would have frozen, panicked, flapped my arms like a bird. James Stockdale was shot down over Vietnam in 1965. At that moment, Stockdale knew he would be a prisoner of war for at least 5 years. He knew he would be beaten and tortured. He knew all this, but he didn't focus on it. He accepted it all in that moment. Why? Well, Stoics like Stockdale classify things as within their control or outside their control. He learned this from Epictetus. Flashback time again. Now let's go way back to the 1st century AD, at the height of the Roman Empire. You're a boy in Rome, but you're different from the other boys. They have parents, you have parents, but you also have a master. You are a slave. Also, you're a cripple. Now, what would you do in this situation? I would have complained a lot. Epictetus educated himself in Stoicism, and he was purchased by the Emperor Nero's secretary. And when Nero committed suicide, Epictetus was freed. What would you do with your newfound freedom? I would have gone to the beach. Epictetus founded a school in philosophy in Greece. Now, we have no direct writings of his, only notes from his students. But what did Epictetus write that helped Stockdale? Well, he said things like, your master is anyone who has control over the things you want or hope to avoid. And there is no such thing as being a victim of another. You can only be a victim of yourself. One more time. Your master is anyone who has control over the things you want or hope to avoid. And there is no such thing as being a victim of another. You can only be a victim of yourself. This mindset is not intuitive, but Stockdale practiced it daily. Let's go back to Vietnam. Now, Stockdale didn't focus on what he couldn't control, but he wasn't a pushover. In fact, he staged a riot to get the other prisoners out of leg irons at the Hanoi Hilton. That's the name the Americans gave to the North Vietnamese POW camp. That riot got Stockdale put in isolation for years. And near the end of that time, Stockdale heard they lost other prisoners in what he called torture overshoots, meaning they went too far and people died. Stockdale had had enough. The North Vietnamese caught a note Stockdale tried to pass, to another prisoner while in isolation. And the Vietnamese said to him, Stockdale, you'll get yours tomorrow. Tonight, we're chaining you to your chair so you stay awake all night. Now, Stockdale's chair happened to be near the one window in the prison. If you were Stockdale, what would you do? I would have tried to sleep. Stockdale hopped himself over to the window, broke the glass, and cut his wrists. They found him passed out in a pool of his own blood. Now, the doctor saved him, and that was the last night of torture in the Hanoi Hilton. You see, Stockdale's wife was in Paris that week, demanding humane treatment for prisoners. Stockdale dying would have been a PR disaster. Now, the moral is not do the hard thing, and it all works out in the end. Stockdale focused on what he could control: his mind and his actions. He didn't see himself as a victim. He knew it was 5 years minimum. Maybe he would die, maybe not. He accepted it. If you want to learn more about that mindset, search for the Stockdale Paradox. And if you want to learn more about Epictetus, we don't know as much about his story, but you can read his short book, The Manual for Living, or read about people like Stockdale who practice his philosophy. Now, what don't you control that you're trying to control? What don't you control that you're trying to control? Your job? Your relationships? How about something easier, like complaining? That's right, I'm complaining about complaining. Imagine how much Stockdale and Epictetus had to complain about, and they didn't. When you notice a habit, you start stopping. You earn back that time. Time to focus on things you do control. Activities I control calm my mind. Making a meal, practicing a punch, writing a funny line. Even though I don't control whether you laugh. How much time do you spend on things you don't control? Or said another way, how much attention do you give away for nothing? If that bothers you, read the Stoics. If not, just remember Stockdale and Epictetus, the prisoner and the slave, the tortured and the crippled, the leader and the philosopher.